Geographically, we're kind of central Eastern Ontario. Two major highways apart from the 400 series highways in the Toronto area, but in the north part of the province where we are, we have Highway 11 and Highway 12, and we're kind of central to the junction of those two highways. So companies like the provincial police headquarters, like in Ontario, we have the Ontario Provincial Police is kind of like the state police, if you will. And their general headquarters is located in Orillia. That's about 1,200 employees, good government paying employees that are based at the general headquarters in Orillia. To the east, on the Rama First Nation, which is just on the east side of Orillia, Ontario, we have Casino Rama, which is a 5-star casino resort and hotel entertainment center. They employ about 1,200 to 1,500 employees as well. We have a pretty vibrant tourist season with ongoing waterfront redevelopment. The downtown Orillia has attracted a lot of artistic type people and music, and just the energy and the vibrancy downtown is something to be experienced. We are located between two lakes, Lake Simcoe to the south and Lake Couchiching, which really contributes to our summertime tourism. And we are a destination that is recognized all over the place.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Jules Mckenzie. Jules is a real estate investor and syndicator based out of Orillia, Ontario, Canada. Jules, thank you so much for joining us on the show. How you doing, my friend?
Hello, Dwaine, and hello, listeners. Thanks for having me out today.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. We probably spoke to maybe 2 or 3 investors out in Canada. So I'm very excited to add you on top of our list. It's very good to kind of give some diversity to our listener base, to hear people not only investing in the States, but also internationally. So definitely interested to hear about your perspective, specifically out in your market of Orillia. But before we kick things off, if you don't mind, I know we kind of had some pleasantries pre-show, but love to kind of share that with our audience. If you can talk a little bit about your background and how you got started in real estate.
Okay. As mentioned, my name is Jules Mckenzie. I've been investing in real estate since 2001. Primarily invest in small multifamily apartment buildings that are 4 units, 5 units. I invest in a block of townhouses. Most of my investor capital comes from individual investors outside of Orillia that want to have their money placed in Orillia. Within the community of Orillia, I'm recognized as a rental housing provider. And in addition to that, I provide investment opportunities for my investors to take advantage of the benefits of investing in real estate: equity appreciation, mortgage pay down, positive cash flow. And we report to them on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, whatever their preference is. And in addition to that, I'm a father and a husband. And for the last 30 years, I've been a police officer with the Rama Police. We police Casino Rama and the Rama Indigenous Reservation on the east side of the Orillia, Ontario area. And I'm 51 years old. I'm looking at doing my police work for another 2-3 years, and then I'm going to transfer into a promising, profitable commercial real estate investing career in either leasing or sales or both, or whatever the case may be. How does
Awesome.
that?
And also learn as well as a CrossFit enthusiast as well.
Yes, I am, very much so. We're signing up for the UG series sponsored by Reebok in Canada in Collingwood, coming up on July the 4th. it's going to be a fun weekend.
Awesome. And as far as kind of like your educational background, getting into real estate, was it something that you stumbled upon? I know for me, it was, finding the Purple Book, Robert Kiyosaki. I know for others, it's going to real estate seminars or a combination of thereof. Was there something that inspired you or kind of got your feet wet into the real estate game?
So back in, I guess it would have been around 1998 or 1999, I came home from work and my wife had a guy in our living room, a few well-dressed individuals in our living room drawing circles on a board. And that was my introduction into the Amway business. They called it the Quick Start business. And it was my introduction to network marketing. And at the time, my wife was very interested in us doing this. And I learned how to overcome rejection in sales. I actually studied the books. I actually went to the seminars and did the thing, cold contacted people all over the greater Toronto area, had all kinds of meetings. And although I didn't have any success in that business, it really set me up for 2 years later when I saw a TV infomercial for real estate investing. My wife pulled me out of the network marketing business. And I said, okay, I want to build wealth through real estate investing, and that started our endeavor into that. We studied a couple of courses that were not very specific to our geographical market and the lending trends that we have up here in Canada. So I got into some financial hardships. I was about to quit, and then in 2003, a mentor friend of mine from out west invited me to a seminar put on by a Canadian author, Raymond Aaron, and he had a guy attending named Don Campbell, and he says, he's going to talk about the top 10 towns, man, you got to hear this. And I went. He was talking about Hamilton, and he was talking about the Durham region, Whitby, Oshawa, Pickering. He was talking about Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge areas, the Junction area in Toronto, which back then was a very tough area in Toronto. And I thought, well, okay, I only had three buildings back then. We had many vacant apartments. My lines of credit were overextended. I didn't have the means to renovate the apartments to get them rent ready. My wife was stressed out. I was stressed out. I remember before I left for this seminar, she says, don't sign anything, don't buy anything, don't do anything unless you check with me first. And when Don started talking about the top 10 towns, I listened to him talk about all those areas, and I thought, well, at least I know where I should have been investing. And then when he got near to the top of his top 10 towns, he says, the number one area you should continually pursue and look to invest in is the Barrie and Orillia areas of Simcoe County. And I just lost my junk. I jumped up and down out of my table, and I said, can you believe that? Can you believe that? And Don looked from the back, looked to the back of the room where I was, and he says, if you want to learn anything about those areas, I think you should look at that maniac jumping up and down in the back of the room. And I was really re-energized and reinvigorated, knowing that, I still had to endure some hardships, and I still had to go through some stuff. But that's when I joined a group called the Real Estate Investment Network, and learned how to invest based on economic fundamental principles that are more relevant to our Canadian mortgage market and investing market up here.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I know a lot of people, you probably had a lot of learning in that process of the hardships and getting reinvigorated and looking at it, and of course learning that this can be a good market to invest in. So speaking of that, can you kind of describe the market, Orillia? Of course, I think you said it was like population of 35,000. As far as kind of like jobs or population growth, how's it looking out there?
Absolutely. So Orillia, like I mentioned, is 35,000 people. Geographically, we're kind of central Eastern Ontario. Two major highways apart from the 400 series highways in the Toronto area, but in the north part of the province where we are, we have Highway 11 and Highway 12, and we're kind of central to the junction of those two highways. So companies like the provincial police headquarters, like in Ontario, we have the Ontario Provincial Police is kind of like the state police, if you will. and their general headquarters is located in Orillia. That's about 1,200 employees, good government paying employees that are based at the general headquarters in Orillia. To the east, on the Rama First Nation, which is just on the east side of Orillia, Ontario, we have Casino Rama, which is a 5-star casino resort and hotel entertainment center. They employ about 1,200 to 1,500 employees as well. We have a pretty vibrant tourist season with ongoing waterfront redevelopment. The downtown Orillia has attracted a lot of artistic type people and music, and just the energy and the vibrancy downtown is something to be experienced. We are located between two lakes, Lake Simcoe to the south and Lake Couchiching, which really contributes to our summertime tourism. And we are a destination that is recognized all over the place. We have a median population is probably a little higher. It's probably around 35, 40 years old. We do have a lot of seniors and a lot of senior homes, if anybody's looking into investing into that kind of asset. But we also have Lakehead University in the west end of Orillia, and that's about 1,000 university students. They do have a specific campus housing at Lakehead University, but per se, there isn't a one-stop place for university students to call home while they're attending university. So there is, I guess, for lack of a better term, the student ghetto in the west end of Orillia that annoys a lot of homeowners that purchase brand new homes within the area. We also have Georgian College just beside OPP headquarters. And I think that there are about 2,000 students, college students. So we have like high school, college, and university. So we're very well represented in the academic area. And yeah, so we're about a 90-minute drive north of Toronto. We are kind of like the gateway to Northern Ontario, and we are definitely a popular tourist attraction as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it got a good balance of amenities, jobs, and public services, universities, the casino you had mentioned. So it's very good. As far as kind of, because I'm not familiar with that area at all, as far as like regulation. A lot of times I talk with investors here in the States, we talk about any specific state or county has, is it more landlord friendly or more tenant friendly? What would you say, or really, is it more landlord friendly, or is it more on the tenant side as far as kind of regulatory bodies?
So in the province of Ontario, our landlord-tenant relationships are managed by the province. So right now, the province of Ontario has the Landlord and Tenant Board. We just had an election about 2-3 years ago, and we had a provincial Conservative Party get elected into office, as opposed to I think it was 10 or 12 years of the Liberal Party, which kind of ruled the province of Ontario. They implemented, the previous party implemented a lot of anti-landlord type of initiatives. They had things like an empty housing tax. They had limited the amount of rent we can increase each year. It wasn't a very landlord-friendly environment to be a landlord in. However, that did create the environment for me to flourish, because I'm quite comfortable navigating through the various legal and logistical things you have to go through if you have to evict a tenant. I think my policing background lends itself to that. However, I am hopeful for the future. The Conservative Party is typically landlord friendly. However, right now in Ontario specifically, we are experiencing very long delays at the Landlord-Tenant Board. So the Landlord-Tenant Board essentially is our court system which is to resolve disputes between landlords and tenants. And I'm fortunate, I haven't had to file for an eviction for a couple of years now, but I hear from my fellow landlords that they're waiting 6 to 12 months to get a first hearing date. And that can be very stressful and frustrating, especially if you have a tenant that's not paying, or if you're trying to evict a disruptive tenant that's disturbing other tenants. That could be a real problem. So I am hopeful that things will improve, but right now it's not the most landlord friendly territory.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a investor out in Chicago, Illinois, and they have kind of similar. It's more, more tenant, if you like to say a tenant, landlord friendly, but the laws, it just takes a little bit longer to, do eviction if you're, for lack of payment or any other issue. So, investors have to be more diligent and, being more, not say aggressive, but more, more diligent as far as kind of the reminders or just, selecting better tenant base so you can be able to, have, nice sustainability of cash flow and, not sustaining the, heavy losses there. Are your business model, are you using third party property managers? Are you managing them yourself? And, how does that benefit you on either which way?
So my wife and I managed the properties together. We did start out early on with property management, but when you're paying, 10% plus HST, which is the harmonized sales tax in Ontario, that cuts a big chunk out of your cash flow. And if you're not getting adequate services, then, we decided that we would take that back and manage it ourselves. I believe firmly that 90% of this business is selecting good tenants to place in your apartments in the first place. So if you have a series of questions that you ask a tenant and qualify them to essentially earn the spot in that apartment, chances are you're going to have a good tenancy, and it's not going to be too many bumpy roads or not too many months without rent coming in.
Absolutely. And then as far as kind of I know maybe different from different markets in Canada, do you have like first, last security, or is it, first and that's it? How does your market do it?
So in Ontario, we just have first and last, but the last month really does have to apply to the tenant's last month of the tenancy. So that money has to be applied to the last month's rent, and then we also have to pay an interest comparable to whatever the annual increase is. So, for example, I think last year was 2.1%. We had an opportunity to increase our rent by, and in addition to that, we had to pay our tenants 2.1% interest on their last month's rent if we were holding a last month's rent deposit. Right now, my portfolio, and we have about 50 tenants that we manage, I would say we're kind of cut down the middle as far as the ones that I have with the last month's rent deposit and the ones that I don't. With good communication and properly screened tenants, not having a last month's rent hasn't been a big consideration for us. The tenant gives their 60 days notice, they pay two more payments of rent, and then they move on to their next apartment, and we're usually able to flip the apartment to the next tenant. So we've been pretty lucky that way. I honestly can say that we haven't had a vacancy in a really long time. There is a huge demand for rental apartments and rental housing in the Orillia and Barrie area of this province.
Yeah, that gives you guys a big advantage because then you had mentioned, people are going to be, I would say, paying on time, going to get, be able to select from a better base of tenants and, keep a high occupancy rate. But you did mention, and I just wanted just to double check, you had mentioned there was some type of rent cap as far as our amount that you can increase it per year or something like that, because I know they have it
We do
heavily
have
taxed
rent
and
control in
heavily
Ontario.
done in the state of California. So is that something that's similar to yours?
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah. It's a ceiling, it's a cap of how much you can increase your rent on an annual basis, and that's just for tenants that continue to occupy your apartments. Once the tenant leaves, we can raise the rent to whatever we want it to be. But in a large select group of my apartments, there are some tenants that have been there for as long as 10, 12, 15 years. And, they like their surroundings and they're not going to go anywhere. And, we're glad to have them. But in this particular case, if I was looking for cash flow, it just wouldn't be there as much as it would be had I turned over those apartments.
Hmm. And you also had mentioned there was some type of sales taxes as well on top of what you're paying
Uh,
when you were talking about the property management.
Yeah, so in Ontario and even on our real estate commissions, there's a harmonized sales tax. So the provincial government charges a provincial sales tax, and the federal government charges a goods and services tax. And in Ontario, those two taxes were harmonized into what they call the HST. So it's 13%. So if I was renting an apartment for $1,000 a month, I would have to be charged by a property manager $113 a month for that service. And if the service wasn't all that great, then you can imagine the frustration with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've grown your portfolio, tremendously. We had talked pre-show regarding you guys, work with other investors to help, build your portfolio and give a nice solid return to your investors. Can you give us some tips on what's been effective for you as far as, partnering with other investors, raising capital to, buy into new projects?
So I found that the ultimate way to do that is to network with other like-minded individuals, and going to networking type meetings. For example, meetup.com have several real estate investor type meetings, but most of my investors came from my attendance at the RAIN meeting. So in Canada, we have the Real Estate Investment Network, or raincanada.com. And they meet once a month in Toronto. I'm actually going down for my next RAIN meeting tomorrow night in Toronto. And that's primarily where I met most of my investors. Like I said, these are individuals that want to invest in real estate, but don't have the time or the inclination to look after all the nitty-gritty details themselves. I position myself in the marketplace to be a rental housing provider who provides, in addition to the housing, opportunities to invest in that housing from an investor perspective.
Mm. And as far as kind of what you see your business into the future, I know that you have been very highly specialized in like the 2 to 4 unit. Are you also looking at larger projects, or you just want to kind of stay in that niche of, that kind of that smaller unit?
I would like to expand into commercial real estate, commercial retail, commercial office, maybe light industrial, and those types of properties. So right now I'm studying materials in that aspect of it. For example, on my desk, I got a book out right now called Commercial Real Estate Investing in Canada by Claude Barrie and Pierre Barrie. Those guys are from Toronto. And I'm learning those kind of things right now. I'm looking at taking the CCIM designation course, and that I believe they're out of Chicago, Illinois. If not based out there, they're out of the U.S. anyways. But I believe that taking some of those CCIM designated courses will assist me to expand and grow my knowledge in all aspects of commercial real estate. So yes, I'm looking at doing that. My wife and I are purchasing a small commercial building with 1,500 square feet of main level retail space right now. And we're trying to, like, the commercial tenant is vacating right now, and that person or that company rented the entire main level. So we're just trying to decide now if we're going to subdivide it into 2 spaces and rent it to 2 different tenants, or keep it as one. Upstairs in this particular building is 2 residential apartments, so we can more or less have it carry for minimal costs with the 2 residential apartments, which we're very familiar with. But I am a little anxious about learning the different aspects of releasing a commercial retail space.
Absolutely. Well, definitely with all your success in the residential and multiple units and dealing with a lot of tenants and knowing the laws and stuff, I know you can do quite well in that space as well. Another big question, because a lot of people who listen on this show, they're business owners and investors, or they're working a W-2 and investing. So you being also a police officer while managing a successful business, can you kind of talk about how you've been able to effectively manage your time running both of the business and making sure everything's running and and doing a lot of different things around it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still a shift worker. So I work 12-hour shifts. We're on a funny schedule right now where I work 2-day shifts, 3 night shifts, and then I'm off for 5 days. It's a variation of that week to week, but those 5 days give me the time that I need to manage the real estate assets that we're holding. Um, I seek out service providers, plumbers, electricians, handymen that can operate independently of me. So when I hire somebody, I check out their background and I make sure that if I text them a message, say, I need you to fix a tap at apartment number ABC, I want to know that they can take that information and act on it without me having to supervise them or chase them. So they can contact the tenant, go there and fix it and whatnot. My beautiful wife, Angie, manages the books. She does that on a computer program called QuickBooks. And it's virtually all sent into the accountant so that we can report to our investors very accurately. That's pretty much how we do it. I communicate a lot with my tenants through text message. I know that a lot of investors don't want to deal with tenants, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. I'd rather know what's going on and hear it firsthand as opposed to trying to figure out what if there was a problem, trying to figure out what happened after the fact. So I'm quite comfortable dealing with tenants. I mean, as again, my background as a police officer probably lends itself to that, because dealing with low to moderate income people can be tough at times, but at times it can be very rewarding as well because my tenants, at least my tenants, know that if they need something, I'm there for them. I'm going to make sure that it gets looked after in a quickly, timely fashion. And if they have any helpful suggestions, they know that I'm going to listen and I'm likely going to act on their helpful suggestion. Most recently, I have a 5-unit building close to the downtown, and it was key operated secure entrance door, which was left propped open at times because of visitors. So one of the tenants suggested that I get a keypad, and it's just a simple suggestion. Why don't we get a keypad entrance lock? And that's what I did. And that door has been secure ever since, and we only have the tenants and their guests there. That's an example. And I get thank you text messages saying, thanks, things are running much better now. We really appreciate your time and attention on this.
Yeah, that's the big benefit is, you being, I would say boots on the ground, you're able to, to respond accordingly, get feedback from the tenants and, really have a close relationship that also constitutes into, better tenancy. So people are staying there, paying their rent, they're happy. They know
Oh
that
yeah.
the landlord's on top of stuff because you hear a lot of horror stories that things happen, things break down, and they're not getting able to communicate with the owner, and and that's how things can kind of fall apart. And you being so closely knit, even text messaging or however you communicate it, helps to mitigate that. And that's very important because it's all about occupancy and cash flow at the end of the day. So you gotta do
That's
what you
right.
got to do. So
Yeah.
you kind of describe kind of like your typical day because you have your different shifts. Do you have any special morning routines, what you do when you wake up and things that you do to start your day?
Absolutely. So when I get out of bed, first thing I do is I get down on my knees and I pray to a power greater than myself, and I refer to him as God. And I pray for him to guide my thoughts and my actions, that I may better serve his will for me. And I pray that that will is continuing to invest in real estate, in addition to being a positive influence in my CrossFit gym. I pray that I'm able to build upon my good character and maintain my integrity in all that I do. And then I go out and I usually read for 15-20 minutes, like I'm reading this book right now. Because of the commercial leasing aspect of it, I am reading up on this commercial investing book. So I try to get in a good 20 minutes to a half an hour of reading before I move on to something else. And that something else is CrossFit. So I'll either get in the 6:30 a.m. CrossFit class if I'm working. If I'm not working and I manage to make the 9:30 a.m. CrossFit class, train hard for an hour, and then get a good meal in, and then get on with the other aspects of my day. I do have handy people and service trades that work for me, so it's rare that I'm actually physically involved in working an apartment rental or doing a demo or any of those kind of things anymore. I used to be, but as it turns out now, I'm more the, I guess, for lack of a better term, the brains behind the operation. I try to spend as much time with my beautiful wife as I can. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Trying to maintain a good, healthy, happy lifestyle that inspires others to want to do the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that a lot. I like that you say constantly educating yourself, work out and praying. I mean, just all of the elements of, just trying to be a better person and, just take things to the next level. So that's, really, really nice to hear. What can you say that you're most grateful for?
I'm most grateful for. I'm just grateful that that Angie, my beautiful wife, stuck with me through some of my crazy ideas. Like the idea to start investing in real estate when, years ago we didn't know any of this stuff, and we did have to go through some hard times. And she knew that I had a passion for it. She knew that I had a vision for it, and we continued to do things. So we are purchasing a commercial building. But I'm so grateful for Anne. She has this crazy idea that she wants to purchase a Victorian style home, which is an older home that's well over 100 years old. And she wants to convert it into a bed and breakfast type property. And she found the property. We got an offer on it right now. And you know what? I'm going to support her on that and help her see that vision come true. I'm not entirely familiar with the short-term rentals or the bed and breakfast model of investing, but she has been studying this thing for well over a couple of years, and we've been going through in and out of multiple properties to find the right fit for us. As far as I know, this is it. The right property for us is found, so we're going to be doing that project later on this year. And I'm happy to come back on the show and tell you all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, all the success to you, and like I said, there's a lot of stuff that you're working on, and like I said, definitely love to do another interview and just learn more about the progression. And like I said, just always want to learn more about what's going on in Canada. So, Jules, it was a pleasure to speak with you again. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us and our audience, and again, have a continued success for the rest of the year. And I will look forward to connecting with you again soon. Oh, before we end, would you share with us contact information, how we can get in touch with you, a website, phone number, anything that you're willing to share?
So our website is mckenzieproperties.online. And then my Twitter handle is at Mr. Jules Mckenzie. I'm also on Facebook, of course. My Instagram is mckenzie.jules. So essentially my first and last name in reverse. But that's mostly I'm showing off my CrossFit hiatus stuff on that one. And then also my email address, julesmckenzie@rogers.com. If there was any questions, follow-up questions, or anything that, I can be helpful with, I will.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got a lot of Canadian investors, and they're listening on the show. So feel free to reach out to Jules, any questions, or if you're interested in that market or work with you in the future. So again, I really appreciate you taking the time, and look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dwayne. Appreciate it.
All right, take care, my friend.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or the listening platform of your choice. Also, please check us out at DwaineLClarke.com, as well as find us on Facebook for more useful content and resources.